security, but we have been working with the city and with the developer of this location, for example, to improve lighting on India Street. We're certainly going to communicate our launch date with the police and hopefully there'll be sufficient security, but I'm not aware of any particular plans. I don't know, David, whether you have any.
I'm not aware of any there. We are meeting with the DOT Borough Commissioner to see if we can improve pedestrian markings up at that intersection at India Street, which really doesn't have any right now. So,
and
bicycles, by the way.
Right.
The city DOT, this is a real collaborative effort among a lot of different city agencies. So city DOT is making available bike racks at each one of the, pretty much each one, not Fulton Ferry, because that's a...
It's already there. It's already there.
Okay, you're right. Okay. So there will be a place to park a bike. Bikes are permitted on the boats as well, though there's going to be a limit, probably 20, depending upon the size of the boat we use at the given time of year. We'd love to find ways to encourage people to bike to the location and ride the ferry and then come back to the bike. But if we get too many bikes on the boat, it's going to be a scheduling issue, number one, getting them on and off, and it can be a crowd issue as well.
So can I suggest reaching out, to the 94th precinct and just scheduling a meeting with them and letting them know about the service?
Absolutely.
And before we go any further, I just wanted to introduce Rami Metal. He's from the council member Stephen Levin's office, and that's his district. So I just wanted to introduce him. And before I open it to the floor, can you just explain a little bit more about the subsidized and then what's going to happen 3 years from now? Is the service just going to end, or I think that's going to be the main concern, of the residents and the commuters.
Well, the city is contracted with us, and we've agreed to provide the service for the next 3 years. It's publicly available information. The subsidy over there is $3 million a year. That doesn't cover our full operating costs for running the service. We're operating 10,000 hours plus a year in the service that I described before. So boats, crews, fuel, everything. The subsidy doesn't cover that. So we have to be successful at making sure that you and your neighbors are interested in this service and using it. And one of the reasons we're here is to get that message out and to take, I was listening carefully as everyone introduced themselves and thinking about all the further connecting we can do through you to get the message out in the community, and we very much want to do that. What happens 3 years from now, I can let David speak to that. We hope that it proves itself. There's no question that, because there aren't real intermodal connections at these locations, this is really foot traffic and bike traffic. There's no place to park at any one of these locations except Hunters Point. There's about 150 car lot in that location, but nowhere else. Frankly, the bus service, you probably spend a lot of time in this committee talking about ways to improve bus service. It ain't great in a lot of these neighborhoods. And I don't live here, and I can, just from Williamsburg in particular, and along the water, and we're trying to work with the MTA to get some of the bus routes so that they terminate or come closer to where our landing sites are going to be. That's a struggle because it's all a cost equation for them. So right now there aren't really those so it's bike and pedestrian traffic. So the part of I think, just my point of view, part of the city's goal is obviously to encourage development along the waterfront. In some areas, there's some residence buildings right here. There's a bunch at the edge right now. There's not a lot. That last block, when you asked about security, that's exactly what comes to mind. In the last block of mostly abandoned warehouse. So the city's goal is in part to encourage development along the waterfront, and over time, hopefully the level of traffic. The ferry system will succeed if the city's plan for the waterfront succeeds, and it will be something that has to be evaluated over time.
Great.
We hope to be here more than 3 years.
Thank you.
That's a just one point, you might wanna mention the, connection at East 34th Street.
Oh, yes, thank you. Very, very important. I forgot this. We have a fleet of buses that, when you come into the West 40th Street, the terminal, Pier 79, the west side of Manhattan, there's a fleet of buses that can take you across town at 57th Street, 42nd Street, 34th Street, and downtown, because otherwise you're stuck on 12th Avenue and 40th Street. So one of the reasons we were successful in securing the bid is that we said to the city, we'll do something similar on the east side. So when you hit 34th Street, every peak hour, I described before the peak hour versus the off-peak, the weekend versus, so every peak hour, which is weekday, 7 to 9:30, 4:30 to 7, every peak hour boat that lands here will be met by a bus. That bus will travel, and it's a free bus. So that whatever that fare is, $4, $3, $4, $5.50, will get you onto that bus for free. That bus will then travel west on 35th Street to 6th Avenue, north on 6th Avenue to 48th Street, back east on 48th Street to Lex, and then back down. So it really expands the reach to a significant part of the Midtown office corridor and Grand Central and Times Square, and so it really expands our reach. Thank you.
What's the cost now of the West Side Ferry?
It depends on where you're coming from. I mean, from Hoboken, which is one of our principal terminals, to World Financial Center is $5.50. To here it's $6. But if you're going to from Weehawken to here, it's $11. If you're going to routes that terminate it where the buses are, it's more expensive because that's also a free bus. So if you're coming from Monmouth County to down here, it's $18. It's a wide range. Depends on the distance of the trip.
My other question is noise pollution from the taxis. I know you had a problem downtown a while ago, right? People were complaining. And the East River, where you're going to be bringing this up and down, the sound bounces. I mean, I don't know if you've done sound tests or whatever, but any noise down there bounces back and forth across the river. And it really makes it much, much louder. So, have you done anything about that?
We haven't done studies. We've run some test runs. We didn't have acoustic measuring devices when we did that, but you're absolutely right. There was a particular proximity to a couple of residences. They were older buildings with thin windows. That was really part of the problem. And we have, but the boats do make
my
noise.
question would be, how far will that bounce up to where there are residences, you know, in Brooklyn and whatever? And I don't think people, if you go...
Tell you anecdotally from when we ran the test runs that we didn't. The East River is.
Were you on the shore or were you on the boat?
We were on both. We were on both. We're doing what we can. I mean, it's an issue. Boats do make noise. They're diesel engines, and they.
And when they stop and start.
This was the only location, by the way.
I know.
That we've encountered that sort of complaint. We think it had a lot to do with a particular location and some of the older buildings in the gateway area, because there were other buildings that we were right closer to who did not complain.
And what about when it's running along here? And what's the sound? I don't know, stopping and starting, whether that makes a difference, or as you're running it, it makes a difference.
It's probably when we're stopping and starting. The system is these are bow loading boats, so that the way that we are able to load and unload quickly and keep a 20-minute frequency out of this location is because we bow in, and this is the system throughout the harbor, not unique to the East River.
Will you have a test run when you do this, so people can just listen to what the sound is? I mean, you're going to do it for 3 years, but so that we can know what's happening. Like, when you first do it, are you going to put out something where people will come to these? I mean, you're saying giving it to us, but are you going to put out a big to-do? Is EDC going to say, oh, we're starting this ferry service in the neighborhood, and you're going to put out flyers and...
Yes, we think the way to is coming to meetings like this, going building by building, handing out flyers, going to, community events, festivals
Do you
and
have
the
any
like.
flyers today?
We don't have them today.
Okay.
We will in the next couple of weeks. And we're gonna be in the neighborhood. We're gonna be, taking the lists, hopefully, of people who are here tonight and getting your organizations and doing email blasts and the like to get the message out.
Paul, you might wanna add, these terminals are configured different from the World Financial Center terminal, where in order for the boats to dock, they have to run very close to the shore and parallel to the shore. For the most part, the boats here are, the stern of the boat is pointing out into the river, so
Okay.
it's a different type of
It's not
approach.
quite as
Well, I
bad.
would say also, at India Street as an example, the pier is how many hundreds of feet?
You're about 600 feet off.
The pier takes you 600 feet into the river. I don't think you'll hear the boat in anywhere near here.
450.
450. And then North
Okay.
Williamsburg?
Okay, that's
that?
fair.
North Williamsburg is.
North Williamsburg's it's an 80-foot gangway,
So you're about 150.
plus
Okay.
plus the dock, yeah.
Cause I'm on Greenpoint Avenue. I live there,
You won't hear us.
so that, I won't hear no.
Well,
All right, okay.
Greenpoint Avenue
And,
goes.
and the river. On the river.
On the river.
Yes. Okay.